Hello and welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the French Mondain breed with Laura Mills, who's a longtime breeder, and learn more about this breed. So, Laura, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us.
Well, thanks for having me, Phil. I appreciate it. I love your show. I listen to it every week.
Excellent, thank you. So, can we get a little bit of background on how you got into this breed?
I guess it goes back to I started with pigeons when I was about 5 years old. So that would have been 1975. The first pigeon flew onto the property and I rescued it from our barn cats. And my mom spent days trying to find the owner. The owner, of course, said they didn't want it back. When you look at pictures of it, we think it was a giant Homer, racing Homer cross, or maybe even a genuine Homer, but that was Pigeon. And so everybody connected my mom with this man who was local in the area, and his name was Walter Schmeckpepper. And Walter had probably just about any breed you could imagine. And he had French Mondains. And so I would go to his house every spring and he'd say, bring $12 and a box and a couple boxes. So I would do that. I'd give him the $12. He'd give me a pair of pigeons or two pairs. And then he'd say, now go in there and pick out what you want. And so I would pick out all different types, and French Mondains were the ones I gravitated towards. And I kept going with him all these years. When he passed away, his birds wound up, he had like 300 birds. They all wound up with me. So I went from 20 pigeons to 300 in an afternoon. And I was just a kid. I was like 12. So, but he was at the county fair and he encouraged me to show.
Cool.
Back then, there was a bunch of old guys in there. They didn't like some little girl in the barn, and I would get kicked out all the time. They were like, "No, you got to leave. You can't be in here." So I never quit. I never gave up on it. They all left, passed away. Now I'm the superintendent of the pigeon show.
Nice.
And it's kind of funny because I'm one of the last that have remained, and now there's other exhibitors. But so that's kind of basically how I got into pigeons, and the French Mondains were in that during that time. And
Wow.
I've almost always, I believe, I don't think I've ever gone a time where I didn't have a French Mondain in my coop in some capacity.
Wow. Have
So
you been able to keep that same family line going?
no, it got to the point I had only one of his left. I got him a hen, and that bird he was like 18 years old at the time, and I kept trying to get him to go. And I think he tried, and it's what probably took him out because he would
Mhm.
winter with me in our house because we were renting in town,
Oh,
and my birds were at my parents' farm at the time.
oh,
And nobody in my family has pigeons. They all think I'm crazy. They give me a hard time about it. They have poultry, every other type of poultry. I have lots of others, but I am the only one with pigeons, and it is my passion.
so do you know much about the history of this breed? What crosses went in or how it got here?
I did some research actually, and Wendell Levi in The Pigeon had a really lots of description about the mondaines, not just the French, but the Gross mondaine, the Swiss mondaine, all the different types of mondaines. And they
Okay.
are Italian and French in origin. They were considered ground pigeons, is what they call them. So they didn't fly, which they don't. They fly, but not well. There were various descriptions from different individuals as early as them being described in 1774.
Wow.
So the Mondaine's been around a very long time. There are two versions that are recognized for the French Mondaine. There's the French Gros Mondaine, and then there's the French Gros Mondaine. That's what a lot of people, I think, in America think about with them. It's a small head, big body. They look a little bit like a Texas Pioneer. It would be a close description of them.
Mhm.
Where the ones that my passion is and that I'm kind of focused on is the French Mondaine, no gross French, and that is a big head, big body. It's a utility pigeon. They all are utility. They would been considered more of a meat pigeon, is what they would have been. So, but there's no description of the gross Mondain, but there were several of them at the Grand National. They're not in the standard, but there were some at the National. And then the French Mondains, there was only a few at the Grand National. That was mostly me. There was only a few of us there that had them entered. So they're starting to come back, but they were extremely popular at one point. In fact, the French Mondain Association had been established in 1929. The NPA National that year had 103 French Mondains exhibiting. So it was a big breed at one point, very popular. This past year, that's where I put there were 21 of them shown at the Grand National this last year in 2025. So it's changed, it's lost a lot of popularity. I think it's in the 80s and 90s is when it started to dwindle. And I just don't know why. Maybe the size. It is a big bird. It takes up space. As far as square footage, I would say my loft, I usually count double for one of them versus a smaller breed. So that's kind of rough as far as the history, but they've developed over the years and they've been around for a long time.
Oh, that is interesting. So with it being a bigger bird and not really, you saying so they don't really fly that much either. What can you walk us through what your loft setup is like for this breed?
Sure. My loft, my loft is actually brand new. Last year we lost the loft in a tornado.
Ouch.
And we didn't lose a bird, which is the weirdest thing about it. Walls caved in, the roof was gone. They were really ticked off when I was pulling them out at 3 o'clock in the morning. They were soaking wet, but every bird survived.
Wow.
And so we built a new one. That loft was 14 by 68. The new loft is 24 by 72.
Oh.
It's a big loft. And in that loft, there's 10 8 by 10 coops is what I have. So those coops are in there. And the Frenches can go to the outside fly coops, which are off the ground. They're in the air is how I have it. Almost like a racing homer loft where you would trap them in. That's how my outside fly coops are. They're way up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
But I do put usually a strip of pretty wide strip, maybe a foot wide of plywood down. It's kind of like a little ramp for them to walk up because the Frenches, they would rather walk than fly most of the time. That takes effort and they just don't want to do it.
And what climate would you say? What part of the country are you located in?
I live in Illinois.
Okay,
So the
Midwest
weather is all over the map. Yes. I mean, today they said the heat index sees is 106 right now.
Wow.
And we have high humidity and it'll drop into the other night, it dropped into the 60s from being at almost 100. So the temp it varies. And our winters can be very hard too.
So what do you break down square space? You're saying, being a larger bird like that, how much square foot space are you giving each bird?
I think they say, what is it, 1 square foot per bird?
Yeah.
I give them at least 2. I try to give them as much as I can because they are a bigger bird.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have other breeds in there. So I have Chinese owls in with my French Mondains. And everybody gets along just fine. But it also then allows for me to have more birds because you could put a couple little ones in here, a couple bigger ones, and they get along fine.
Well, being a bigger bird, are there any issues with breeding and fertility?
Yes. The breeding, the biggest thing is that they don't have a lot of longevity as far as their breeding life cycle. I would say 5 or 6 years old, you're really pushing it as far as breeding. You can sometimes, hens will lay eggs, but it's more hit and miss at that point. The cockbirds, they get to the point where they just lay around all day. They'll talk to the hens, but they'd rather not do anything about it. But when they are younger, I try right away. As soon as they're showing that they're ready, then I will try to breed them. I will take an inch off their tails so that to complete the breeding process, the tail doesn't interfere because it can. And I know a lot of other breeders do that for other breeds too.
Right.
But the French is one that you definitely need to. But other than that, I do open loft and I do cages. I bought They're extra large dog crates is what they are. And I will put them in there and I can do it. If I get somebody who's a little too aggressive, I'll put them in there. Too territorial,
Okay.
they'll breed in there. But I do both. Right now I'm doing open loft because it's just so hot. I wouldn't want them in cages.
Oh, I just keep them a little bit cooler in open space. How are they when it comes to raising the young? They're pretty
They're
good
great.
parents.
So they can be pretty territorial with their babies. When those babies are getting close to hatching, they can be.
Hmm.
But it's more of just stay away from my nest type thing. It's not hunt the other birds down and kill them or pick them. But they are very good parents. I have never had them abandon them or anything. They've been very good. So more
Oh,
like a homer. They really are.
interesting. So let's talk a little bit about showing the breed and what kind of steps you go to when it comes to getting it ready for a show, prepping and conditioning and stuff like that.
The biggest thing is just cleanliness. You clean the vent, make sure that there's nothing there, clean the bands. The legs should be clean without feathers on them. So if there are any, I'll make sure there's no feathers between the toes, anything like that. I let them bathe a couple days before the show because they'll do it themselves. Keep watch for lice or anything. You want to make sure
Mm.
you get ahead of that one. I know we all experience that.
Yeah.
And that's about it. They're easy as far as that's concerned. There's no frills where my son had English trumpeters, so that's a whole new ball of wax. And then the other one had Indian fantails, and prepping those is completely different than Frenches. You pretty much put them in a cage. You're good to
Okay.
go.
What are you doing for bugs and lice control?
I use the Atom spray is
Oh,
what I use. I let them bathe and I'll put that 20 mule team stuff that everybody's used over the years. I put that in the bath water or I'll get something from Pigeon Supply Plus or Foy's and just to put in the bath water to kind of monitor that. I know a lot of other people are trying different things. Right now, I'm just using the Atom spray.
hmm.
And when I vaccinate, they get sprayed and then right before a show, just more as a precaution to make sure that they don't have anything.
Because with that atom spray, you're spraying the bird directly, right?
Correct.
How long does that really stay on the bird and last? Or how often are you doing that?
It doesn't last long. Is the minute they take a bath, it's gone.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's more of just monitoring the birds. They don't have anything. I'm not gonna, there's no reason to do it.
Hmm.
But going to the shows, the prep is I always spray, make sure nobody has anything. And then coming home from a show, I spray because they could pick up something at a show
Hmm.
easily.
Do you
Whether
give,
it's, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was going
Sorry.
to say, do you give any sort of supplements before or after a show?
I will, what is it? Pigeon Builder. I will give them in their water, sometimes during the show. I also usually use apple cider vinegar during the week. I like using that. Red Cell, I'll put that in the water. It's just the basic stuff. I also use Castle vitamins
Hmm.
and the Avio vitamins with oil on their feed. So
Hmm.
I can rotate those but every other week, one a different type. I know you interviewed Castle, and I have been using his product for a long time. But I use those, and I've noticed the feathering is very soft. It does make a big difference as far as that's using those vitamins.
Nice. And talking more about the show, can you give us a breakdown of how the points score on these birds?
Sure, the French Mondain is considered a form pigeon, so the head is 15 points. The neck and the throat area would be 5. The back 10, the tail 10, wings and shoulders 10, the legs and the toes would be 10, the feathers 5, the breast would be 5. The length of the keel is a big one for 10 points, and then there's a few others for 5, and then their weight is important because they are a utility breed, so you want them in good condition. So, but that's the breakdown of it. I don't know if it'll remain the same if the breeders keep going and they want to revise it, but I suspect it'll stay the same. The bird hasn't changed in years, so
Well, that could be a good thing too. Sometimes
yeah.
it's strange when you look back at how much a standard has really changed a bird, and When you're going to the shows and you're seeing these birds, are there any kind of common faults or anything that you think that the breed really needs to be working on?
The head is the biggest thing. That's your biggest
Right.
points.
Yeah.
So you really want to watch that. You don't want the creases. You want a good short beak. That's my biggest fault. My beaks get to be too long. I know that that's my fault, and I've been trying to breed it out for a shorter beak, and it's just takes time. You want to basically you want a powerful bird. That's what you want. In you want good feathering too, because you could look at some of the other breeds and other utility breeds and their feathering isn't as good, but a French's usually is. It looks nice. Fine, reformed breed. It's not just a utility looking meat bird. They want it nice too. But other than that, as far as there aren't many of us showing, so there isn't a lot of faults to find because there aren't birds out there.
So
So
you were talking about the different types that there's the gross and the French, and can you talk about some of the different colors and patterns that you're getting? And are there only limited to the different types that come in this?
no, they would be reds, blues, opals, browns. They're pretty much most of the same colors that the other breeds, typical colors that you would see, red bars, blue bars. I have solids, I have a yellow, black, the brown. They really have a multitude of colors, and it's more of looking at toenails need to be the right colors, and flights cannot be white on a blue check. It has to be a blue check, and otherwise it would be considered any other color. So it's like other breeds, the color variations, and if there's certain things in there, then it would be considered any other color.
Are there any specific books to this breed or any other types of resources that you would think would be helpful for breeders?
I wish, because
No?
I would love to get my hands on it.
Really?
I think that The Pigeon by Wendell Levi was probably one of the best resources as far as looking at history, where they come from, and things like that. But as far as modern, no, there just isn't. That at least that I've found. I know a lot of the guys have been posting on Facebook some old things from the American Pigeon Journal and the breakdown of the birds on there, which is great, but it's stuff is 30, 40, 50 years old, but the standard still holds true. That's the other side, is that look and everything about the bird still holds true. So I wish there was a book, because boy, I'd love to have it.
Well, you better get working on writing one. I wonder if has there been any recent purebred pigeon articles on that breed? No, you can think of
No,
it. That's
that's it would be great, but maybe at some point if we can get going as far as the club itself to get the membership up, maybe that would be a definite goal to aim for, to have everybody put something in the purebred pigeon. It would be great to have an issue about the Frenches.
yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit. So you're working on getting the national club started up again. How did that get going, and how is it going currently?
So far, really good. We're lined up to go to the Oklahoma Futurity with the Giant Homers. The French Mondain Club's going to be there.
No?
We've already started talking as far as numbers and how many of us will be at. We'll be at the National Young Bird Show, Des Moines, and possibly Wisconsin. I can't think, Watertown, Wisconsin. There's a show up there. But a lot of the interest has been more south is where it's at. But I'm
Hmm.
being north. I know the people who are up north that have the birds, and they would come to the northern ones. So my plan has been to just do as much as I can do north and south to get as many people on board and showing.
Yeah. So you're literally starting this club back up from scratch, right?
It was totally done. A
Okay.
couple years ago, it was going, and the person in charge of it got out of them.
Mhm.
And so there was nothing left. We can't even get any of the old information. I've tried. So, and it's kind of sad, but things happen and people have to make choices. So
Right.
the unfortunate part was the club. But so we're just starting off new is what we're doing. My husband, I made him secretary. He doesn't even own a pigeon, but I made him I said, "You're secretary, start writing." And some of the other breeders are doing a lot of the work too. So I'm looking forward to the shows to see the other birds out there, other than my own and one or two others. It'd be nice to see other breeders' birds, see where we're all at, because we
Yeah.
just don't know.
Sounds like you got a pretty big list that shows that you guys are going to be attending. So that's a good way to get
Mhm.
out there and see what's really going on with that breed. Get some more
Exactly.
together, hopefully around it too. That's anytime a breed can get a club behind it, that breed automatically does better and has a future looking forward. So that's really good that you got that started. And so what's the name? So you have a Facebook group too. What's the name of the Facebook group?
The National French Mondain Club.
You guys have any plans for starting any website or anything like that for it as well, or are you just sticking with the Facebook?
We
Okay.
do. It's in its infancy stage. We're just getting that going. I'm getting some help from one of the NPA directors, and he's been getting going on that. So I wanted to let the club go for a year and see how things go, and then bring in the website maybe halfway through to be able to do that. And for paying dues too, it would be nice to do it online for people.
That's easier, especially for a national club if they can't meet you at a show or
It's
anything.
always tough. And I know myself when I was looking for the other breeds, that's the first place I went is look for websites.
Right.
So it's important to have that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, if anybody's interested in learning more about this breed or checking out that national club, they got a Facebook group. So go check them out there. It's the National Mondain. Is it French Mondain? I'm sorry. Is it National Mondain?
French Mondain. Yeah,
National
National
French
French
Mondain
Mondain Club.
Club. Check them out there on Facebook. And Laura, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for coming on and talking about this breed with us today.
Absolutely, Phil. Thanks for having me.